Ethan had always been a quiet man with a warm heart. After years of working old jobs, he finally opened a small incense shop at the corner of a quiet street in his hometown. He didn't have much money, but what he lacked in wealth, he made up for in care. The shelves were lined with neatly arranged sticks, jasmine, sandalwood, lavender, and the air inside was always filled with a gentle, calming scent. He dusted the counters every morning, greeted every customer with a smile, and made sure no one left without feeling a little more peaceful than when they came in. To make his shop more noticeable, Ethan hand-painted a signboard and hung it proudly outside. "Fragrant incense sticks available in our shop." The message was simple but honest, and it reflected exactly what he offered. To Ethan, it was more than a line of words. It was a declaration of his passion. In just a few weeks, business picked up. Locals started coming in regularly. Some bought incense for their homes. Others simply stopped by to enjoy the calming atmosphere and have a chat. For the first time in years, Ethan felt proud. The scent of success, much like his incense, hung gently in the air. One afternoon, a sharply dressed man stopped in front of the shop. He looked at the board, squinted, and stepped inside. "Hey," he said, "this word fragrant, it's unnecessary. All incense sticks are fragrant. You're repeating the obvious. It makes you look unprofessional." Ethan felt unsure. He hadn't thought of it that way. Not wanting to seem ignorant or offend the man, he nodded and said, "Maybe you're right." That evening, he called the painter and asked him to remove the word fragrant. The board now read, "Incense sticks available in our shop." A week passed. Another man walked by, wearing glasses and holding a clipboard. He frowned at the board, then walked in. "Why have you written in our shop? Isn't that already clear? Of course they're in your shop. That's implied. You don't want to clutter your message." Again, Ethan hesitated. He didn't feel confident enough to argue, and he wanted to appear smart, modern. So he nodded. The painter returned. The sign now read, "Incense sticks available." A few more days passed before a third visitor appeared, a young marketing graduate who had just finished business school. He stood outside for a while, then said, "You don't need the word available. If your shop is open, people know it's for sale. Keep it sleek." Ethan, now nervous and unsure of himself, nodded once again. The painter came back. Now the board simply said, "Incense sticks." And finally, an elderly man, after looking at the sign for a long time, came in and gave Ethan one last piece of advice. "You don't need a sign at all. Anyone can see this is an incense shop. Why waste the space?" By this point, Ethan's confidence had eroded. Doubt had crept in like a shadow, and fear of being wrong had become his only guiding principle. So, for the last time, the painter came and wiped the board clean. Now the shop stood quietly, with no name, no message, no identity. At first, Ethan tried to stay positive. He still cleaned the shelves, still lit the incense each morning. But something had changed. Fewer people came in. Passers-by walked past without even noticing the shop. The once gentle fragrance inside now mixed with a strange heaviness, something harder to name, like confusion or loss. Weeks turned into months. Ethan sat behind the counter most days, staring at the empty signboard outside as if waiting for someone to tell him what to do next. The store, once filled with energy and calm, had become a silent shell. Then, one chilly morning, an old friend named Leo stopped by. He hadn't seen Ethan in years. The two men embraced, but Leo quickly noticed the stillness. "What happened, Ethan?" Leo asked, his eyes scanning the empty shop. "This place used to have a soul." Ethan sighed. "I tried to make it better. People kept telling me how to improve the sign. So I followed their advice. Piece by piece I changed it. Until there was nothing left." Leo walked outside, stared at the blank board, then came back in, his face flushed with frustration. "Have you completely lost your mind?" he said sharply. "You let them erase you. That sign was your voice, Ethan. That was your identity. Your message. Your heart. And you silenced it just to please strangers." Ethan sat quietly for a long moment. His eyes began to water. He hadn't cried in years, but something about Leo's words hit a part of him that he had buried for too long. That night, Ethan stayed in the shop long after closing. He stared at the blank signboard as if it were a mirror, reflecting not what he was, but what he had let go. And in that silence, something stirred within him. A spark. A decision. The next morning, as the town was still waking up, Ethan stood outside with a brush in one hand and a can of paint in the other. With slow, steady strokes, he painted the words exactly as they had once been. Fragrant incense sticks available in our shop. And something magical happened. That very day, an elderly woman who used to come in weekly returned. "I thought you'd closed," she said. "I couldn't find your sign." Then a young man stopped by on his lunch break. Then another. Word spread. Ethan was back. The shop didn't suddenly explode with customers. But slowly, steadily, it came back to life. And this time, Ethan didn't flinch when someone said, "Maybe you should change this." He would smile, listen, and say, "Thank you. I'll think about it." But he trusted himself more now. He had learned the most important lesson of all. In life, your values, your dreams, your vision. These are your signboard. The moment you let fear or the need for approval dictate your choices, you begin to erase yourself. Advice can be helpful, yes. But not all advice is right for you. If you don't stand firm in who you are, you risk becoming invisible in your own life. The world doesn't need you to be perfect. It needs you to be real. And so Ethan's little shop stood proudly once again, the fragrance of incense drifting gently into the street, carrying with it a whisper of courage and the story of a man who nearly lost his voice, but found it again, just in time. Your life is your shop. Your signboard is your voice. Don't let anyone erase it. Write your truth, and let it be seen.